Hello and welcome to Ubuntu Rising. Ubuntu Rising is a podcast where we discuss Africa, its history, its experiences, its present and future. We discuss, or rather, the name of this podcast will be From Chains to Freedom, because we are looking at our history, the history of the African continent, where it was vibrant, even though now it's vibrant, but without the real essence of how we were eons ago when we were already free. But then some time came along when we ended up in chains. Eventually, we allegedly found our independence. But although we still believe we are still under the influence of the people who had chained us. So Ubuntu Rising will be uploaded on YouTube every week and also on other platforms. My name is Patrick Ngugi, and with me here is Albina Hipp, who is an expert in the topic that we are going to discuss. Welcome, Albina, and say hi to our listeners.
Hello.
Yes. So tell us, why do we need to look at Africa? Why do we need to? And here, when I talk about Africa, of course, we are talking about perhaps Africa south of Sahara, and maybe the Black Africa in the diaspora, or am I wrong?
Well, I would prefer the terminology of sub-Saharan Africa and the descendants of Africa, because wherever we go on this earth, we are named and classified according to where we come from, which is Africa.
Yes.
Although there is contestation on who gave the name Africa, because the name Africa comes from some Roman colonial. But wherever we go, which is something I have noticed, is that irrespective of where we have been born, whether in the diaspora, whether in Africa, whether we are 400 centuries away from Africa, the treatment and the classification of us all is the same. So yes, some call themselves Black Americans, some call them Black, some call them Afro-Americans, and others in the Latino context, they also have their own classification and names. But the fact remains that it's our heritage, our features, the color of our skin that defines who we are across the globe, whether we like it or not. So we have many people who try to push back and say, I am not, but I am this. But in the eyes of many people who have classified us as such, we are one group of people with one culture, one heritage, one everything, which in fact is not true. We are the cradle of humankind and the cradle of human civilization, even of writing. But yet all that history has been silenced and people have come and borrowed. Like, who is this? Pythagoras. He came to Africa. Which other scholar is this? So they all borrowed and took. It's just the same way that if we look at it, how we have also been trained is you go, learn, see what the white man does, then we come home to show ourselves how the white man, so we teach each other. That's why we're even speaking this language called English. But in essence, we are almost doing the full circle, because they also got their knowledge from us. preserved it because it was so valuable. They held on to it, created a class system, created empire, because of that little knowledge that they gathered from us.
Yeah.
And then they made that little knowledge so big and so powerful
Yes.
that then now we who have abundance, we who created it in the first place,
Yeah. I may want
now
to.
start thinking of,
Yes, I agree, but I may want to ask you that
Mm.
we are doing this podcast,
Yes.
Ubuntu Rising, and we want to listen or look at the story of Africa, the history of Africa. Why is it so important? Why do we have to look at that history?
Because we need to have our own history spoken by people like us, by ourselves. It's time.
And what's wrong with the history that we have about Africa?
Well, I will quote Chinua Achebe where you say, the story of the lion. It's not told by the lion himself, it's by the one who killed it. So, but then now we are not dead. We are here. And
Yes.
and we have our knowledge and we are very gifted people, culturally, mentally, physically, even on the ground we walk on, we are the world's billionaires. Yet all that richness we carry, we are not aware that we carry it, but others are aware that we carry it. And that's why sometimes they even call us stupid. It's just like one of these, I can't remember who, he had come down to Africa and he was trading with glass. For them, glass was something which was very simple. But for us, gold was also things which were being collected. He came to visit, is it Mali or somewhere in Chad, somewhere around South Sudan. And so he found them, he actually said, what a group of people. How stupid can these people be? We are trading with them beads and they're giving us gold. Now, if you look at that, if you listen to that person speak, then you'd also think that whatever he's saying is true, when the actual reality is we have abundance. So that's why for us, giving gold was not a big thing. For them, gold is rare. It was not something you could find. Even diamonds, was not something they could. We were playing with them. This were part of us.
Yeah, we have the story of, for example, we have the story of Mansa Musa.
Yes, who destroyed the economies. He
Yes,
destroyed
and
them as he went.
even today, he's regarded as the wealthiest person ever lived because he was so rich and he was Africa. He was an African from the West.
Again, history is also a very beautiful thing to have when you look at it nicely.
Yeah.
The cradle of mankind is where we are right now in Africa, East Africa. They say the genome, what is it? The mitochondrial Eve and the mitochondrial Adam.
Yes.
Come from. They have pinpointed it to the Serengeti, Masai Mara and the Serengeti. Those people there. And as I always say, who changed the color of God? Because if we then put all these religions together where we say, God made man in his own image, then surely, if man was an East African,
if the cradle of mankind
is an East African,
East
had
Africa,
hair,
and
nice.
God made man in his image, so God must have been black. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. So many people are busy banging here saying, let's wait, but we shall see if that happens. But if not, we are the origins. We are the originals. Even when we talk about this COVID pandemic thing, studies even showed that the COVID virus did not recognize the DNA of Africa, because it did not mutate through the African body.
Actually, talking about COVID and the lockdown and so on, you might
Yes.
wonder why we need a lockdown in Africa, because very minimal number of deaths happening, if any.
But
Because
it was the
some of the deaths we were told about was not actually COVID.
no, it was the lack of awareness.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
The lack of awareness. And also remember COVID it's a virus, a living virus, which was thriving in the cold.
Mm-hmm.
Africa, we have open spaces.
Africa is not cold.
No, we live with open doors. Like I wrote an article somewhere and I said why we have Africans, our doors are always open. We never close them. They are
Okay.
open, which means we are open people, because so that for whoever goes can return, but don't return in violence. Return nicely. You're coming back home. When you come back home, do you come back in violence? You come back bringing whatever you're bringing and saying who you are and when did you leave and why you're back.
Yeah.
So again, if you look even at our huts and our beautiful structures, even the ones which are in West Africa, the doors are not there, or they are minimum. It's open. You come across the doors, of course, because of environment, the cold. How do you keep the cold away? Then you have these doors. So then you start creating boundaries which lock you in. But our environment does not allow us.
So yeah, we'll talk about all about that, and also about the fact that we mentioned how Africa was wealthy, very rich. Even now, it's still wealthy, but maybe it's exploited.
In whose terms?
Yes, we will look, but we are wealthy, but maybe we are not aware of it.
We are wealthy in whose terms? Because in us, we are in abundance. We were playing with those things. We didn't know whether they were
And
gems or to
for us,
adorn
that
on
is
people's
very normal.
heads.
Wealth, abundance is a normal thing in Africa, but we are too blind to it. Have we been made blind, or that's our nature of being?
We have been made blind. But we know, again, what did we define as wealth? What did Africans define as wealth? Was it material? No, it wasn't material. Wealth was by family, bond, kinship. How many children you had?
Yes.
Wealth, we were primordial in that sense. Our wealth was defined by the living things that we had, not owned, and what we could share.
Yes.
Yeah. So we were not materialistic. So that's why I say wealth defined by who. So on the ground that we are walking on is still the same, the one that we found ourselves walking on. And in our perspective, because of the abundance of it, these things they're everywhere. So we shared. We always shared. The fruit tree was shared. Children played together in cycle. That's why even the Ubuntu philosophy was coined, but had already been there.
It was there
Ubuntu.
already.
Yeah, human. Who is Ubuntu? Mtu means human.
Yeah.
So we were socialized to see the humanity in somebody. That is what connected us, and that was what we governed as wealth, not material things. So food was also wealth, but were we supposed to hoard it? No, we shared it. We bartered, we exchanged. We had livestock. You see again, all those things but wealth was governed by also how the society carried you. What were your inputs to the society?
Yes.
And then that is also how your names kept being, how long your destiny, what is it, dynasty, or is it how long, so that's why even names were very important. To even be named after, to be named, it was the naming, it was the continuation of life.
Yes.
So wealth and abundance in Africa was considered not by materialistic things, but when you are not here with us, when you have gone the journey of our ancestors, Do we still remember you? How do we remember you by? Of course, it's through the namings, through the deeds you did.
So what changed then? Because if we were not that materialistic before, what changed? Because currently many of the wars that are being fought, not only across country boundaries, but within the countries themselves, is because of wealth or fight against supremacy, power. So what changed?
Yes. Well, you see, this is the thing. What changed is if we go back and we use as well history, moving between continents, there was one time moving between continents was by foot. That's how the human species spread until it's where I am right now.
Okay.
We were all in Africa, but still, then of course there's the development of the boat, the camel, all these things. So we had that, but then of course when the ship was invented, and then empires. Remember, especially in Europe, there was the 300-year war, isn't it? But war needs resources. Go to war, to go to fight your neighbor, you need resources.
Yes.
That's why also Africans, we are not, naturally, our culture does not embrace war. We embrace peace because war is consuming. It is a consuming institution of labor, of resources, of people, of lives. And because all these people were busy fighting, so they needed more resources. They needed fighters, they needed food, they needed all these things. But at the same time, they were building these boats so that they can be able to fight with each other. But they still need resources. So they had to then start moving around, looking for resources. War creates scarcity.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that the ancient African never embodied more of peace rather than war. But we also know that there were tribal fights. For example, the Maasai would attack the Kikuyus for the cattle, or just there used to be that constant war because the Kikuyu would be attacked by the Maasai, then the Kikuyu would retaliate. And yet you say we believed in peace. Can you elaborate on that?
Well, I will elaborate a little bit. Now, I'll use the East African concept because, again, Africa is a continent of very, very many nations. And I would also like to define what a nation state is. A nation is where people share the same language, the same history, the same culture. And then from there, they form their own governance. So it's a very simplified definition. So we have nation state and we have sovereign state. So the best way and the best example I always give is France for the French. So these are a people. This is or we could say, if we use it in our terminologies, an ethnicity or a tribe. Let's now deconstruct and look at this through the decolonial lens. These are people who speak a particular language called French. And they have their history in the French language. And they have their, what is it called? Their rules and social norms defined within that context of France, of French, the language French. And from them, they created a state, a nation state, a government. So within that territory is what was called then France. Then we go to German for Germans. So if you go to Germany, you don't speak English, you speak German. Another example, Sweden is for who? Swedish speakers.
Okay.
So if we put it now within the African context, and I would say East African, then we would be saying, but I'm not advocating for this because there's a bigger picture in all this. Kikuyu should have their own Kikuyu land with a flag. and a president and everything, and a government, and a place in the United Nations. Kalenjin, the same. Maasai, the same. Igbo, the same. You understand? But we in Africa have sovereign states where a group of nations come together within a set territory and then elect and define how they within that territory shall be governed.
Okay.
Now, when we talk about the decolonial, of course, we can then see those territories were not created by us.
They
It
weren't
was
natural.
in 1884 at the Berlin Conference.
They weren't natural.
They were not natural. But here in Europe, in a way, it was natural and conquering and fighting and all these things. And then they created their own states. So within the United Nations Security Council, we have nation states and sovereign states.
Okay.
Two different states or two different ways of governance. So, of course, if you are all speaking the same language, you have the same history, you can trace down to your first ancestor. Then, of course, aren't you one solid unit? When
Yes.
you decide to do something, won't you then do it all of you together?
Yes.
What about if you are many nation states and you're coming together? Would it be, what then happens? There's a lot of negotiation between these nation states on which way forward. And it's also based on our histories, our mythologies, our belief systems. So within the African nations, sovereign nation states, there are some people who don't believe in a God. There are some people who believe it's water. There are some people who believe in a hierarchical form of governance, where there's one leader, a king, come down, come down, come down, come down. And there are some other choices on a horizontal, where they have a governing body or a group of elders, governing elders that come together to decide for. So you see, those are very different governance styles, where then all these people have to come together and then agree on how that space they occupy will be governed.
Yes.
So not many people, and I've not heard many people say that Africans are a magnificent lot of people. The best example for how the United Nations should be run can be found within very many African peaceful states. Because we are many nations coming together and deciding who is going to lead us through democracy and all these things. But again, we are then forced in our decolonial and in our colonial minds to look at what is happening to our fellow brothers whose governance is of nation state. We are sovereign. So whatever applies in a country where they all speak the same language, they all have everything, they have the shared history. You cannot then take that, copy paste it into a state like Kenya. It will not work. That's when now we have what is called this. Now they start calling it tribal wars, ethnic wars, but it also nation wars, because we are all national. We are all small nations. Okay. Coming together. So again, you're taking me to the point of talking about this what the Maasai and the Kikuyu, for example. So of course we have resources. So if we look at the East African history, the Maasais would come down with their cattle for what? For grass, for pasture and water. The Kikuyu is an agriculturalist, so therefore the plants and the water, so we all meet and on a resource, a natural resource, which then of course can create the competition of who gets how and how much
Mm.
can then create a
Yes.
situation called a conflict. But even in those conflict situations, they did send elders. And this is how the compensation used to work. The peace resolution or the peace conflict management used to work. If one is killed, you shall replace from yourself as a community, a child or a whole. So it was then a negotiation.
Mm.
We have in the last fight, we had these people who are dead. So for us to avoid fighting, let us intermarry. So they used to take, and that's why we have also, I also use this example, the name Madai, the
Mm.
Kikuyu. It
Mm.
means
Mm.
sky. Why is it now in a name in the Kikuyu?
Mm.
Is
Mm.
because in those
Mm.
conflicts, there
Mm.
were, of course, the Maasai, there was an exchange. You
Yes.
exchange life for life, but not exchange life for life that if you kill, you kill. If you have killed, send one of your own, living,
Mm.
living, not
Okay.
dead. So
Mm.
you're not a Murabi. What's it called? A Murabi, not for an eye and a tooth for a tooth.
Yes.
It was again, we were building on peace. We
Yes.
were valuing peace and building it and trying to make it as sustainable and lasting as possible.
Mm. Mm.
Therefore, you cannot then go to war with your sister who has
Mm.
married, who was taken
Mm.
you cannot, and that's what they say, you cannot fight in-laws. So
Yes.
therefore, if you then next time you need water for herding,
Mm.
you then you send an emissary. That's why
Mm.
there were messengers to go to that community to say,
Mm.
now we have no water. May
Mm.
we come and because now you are kin, you are now family through
Mm.
marriage or through the exchange
Mm.
of a life for life, but not a life for life to death, but a
Sure.
dead life with a
Mm.
living one,
It's a life for a life,
a life for life.
not dead for not murder for
You're not
murder.
exactly. So this is what we kind of call the positive
Yeah.
type of, you
Now it's
know.
very interesting that they would call each other in-laws, and this reminds me of the Luyas and the Luos who live side by side, and then they call each other as shemeji, in-laws. That could have
Exactly,
been the
because it's the
reason.
same thing.
Mm.
Is the same thing. There's also this African saying where it says that when there are two rocks in a basket, they
Yeah.
cannot avoid banging onto each other. When they bang onto each other, they are supposed to
Yeah.
bang and say sorry.
Yeah.
And
That
how
is.
do you say sorry? So that's why
Yeah.
you communities then, if you look, they mingled, and the language also flowed in such a way that your
Mm.
neighbor's language and the nation state, it flew, because
Yeah.
there's that intermarriage, the sustaining of peace. So
Yes.
basically, Africa and the African communities and the nations that were there loved and honored peace
Okay.
and life.
Yeah, that
Yes.
that 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 bit might be one of the issues or point that many Gen Zs or even millennials or even some of us may not really know about ourselves, and I think that's the reason why we need to go back and learn about Africa and learn about our story. So maybe for the next 20 minutes, which is remaining, maybe you can tell us now. Apart from that, what are the reasons that we need to go back and study and remind ourselves of our history?
For me, the most important is to remind ourselves that we are connected. Ubuntu.
Ubuntu.
I exist because you exist, and you exist because I exist.
Yes.
Similarly, in our communities, no one was a mistake. Everybody within the community and born with into the community was known and believed to offer something to that society. So
Mm.
we never left anyone behind. We never created, you don't belong to us or you belong to us. No, 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 no. Because of, I think, our mythology, where we do have ancestors, the living dead, the living, and the yet to be born.
Oh.
So already we knew we are in a way connected. So and we knew of the like rebirth or
Yes.
reincarnation of the So you would never, you valued life in whatever form it came in, because again, this reincarnation, you don't know who has. And we also then talk about the societal gatekeepers, who usually were the, how do you say, the herbalists, the, yeah, I'll now use the South African, the sangomas, or the witch doctors, or, but the one, witch doctors, again, I have a very big problem with that definition. But they were the ones who held the communities together. How? Through the connection of the spirit, the ancestors, to the living and to the future. And they were the ones who were naturally known as the gatekeepers. And they were the same ones who, some were also herbalists. So when we fell sick, they had that education. They had learned from their own, so it became, from their own father to their own, it became an inherited. So the knowledge flowed on how to heal us, whether psychological, whether physical or spiritual. There was always somebody who had a gift to keep us and sustain us. Again, all these gifts are still within us, but now we question them. So a doctor now is still like the healer in our times, but instead of now herbal medicine or trees, they are then, of course, using scientific medicine. But then does that then allow them to not see the humanity in us as their patients? Does that allow them then to exploit us so that they can? That is un-African. That is not Ubuntu, because we are connected. So like this case of the selling of kidneys.
Yeah.
If those people were aware of their cultural belief system and how they carried themselves and were fully in tune with themselves, they would then be able to look and say, is it my destiny to destroy somebody else's life for something which is material? Which, remember, we also had those things called taboos, where you say, well, or karma, whatever goes around must come around. So again,
in Kikuyu we say weka weka.
You do it onto yourself. If you do
you're doing
good,
to us. Yes.
if you do good to us, you're doing it good to you. It's the same thing. If you do bad to others, it's the same thing. That's just many examples can be. You can find someone who's thought, okay, I am rich, I will build a whole palatial, take all the money from governance or whatever department there, and they build this big, magnificent house, and they only make a small road for themselves. They close all the riparian areas for the river because they really want to grab land. What happens when the rains come? Even them, they get flooded. Not only the poor, even them and their own whole resources.
Yeah.
Exactly. So again, there you start seeing laptops flowing and the TVs floating by the river. In the end, you are still left as you are. And even that's why we say, we say how you came on earth is the same way we shall live.
Yes.
If people, again, if we tapped onto our African mythology or our belief system, and for some, okay, then we talk about religion. Even those religions say the same thing. You do good for others so that it's good for you. There's the promise of heaven. Isn't it? But if you do good on earth, and the good comes back to you when you're still on earth, isn't that a very beautiful heaven?
Yeah, heaven on earth.
If instead of, again, this thing of, instead of going to fly and using all the country resources, you fly yourself to another country so that you can go give birth or you go for surgery. Yet the best doctors, one of the best doctors in the world, per none, are in Kenya. Why not build your own? The example I also like using is, look, if you look here within the Western countries, when Queen Elizabeth fell sick COVID, did she fly to USA? She went to the Kenyatta Hospital. Yes. Have we, our leaders, can they find themselves in a Kenyatta Hospital? What if they could? You see, they would then realize the X-ray machine doesn't work. They will then realize the theater needs. So what will they do? They will take the resource there. So it will not only benefit them, but will benefit everybody.
And it's very ironic that so many leaders, for example, in Kenya, the well-to-do people, including the big shots and everybody, when they get sick, they go abroad. But the cost of going abroad alone, the air ticket, the people accompanying them, the arrival, they stay there, forget the medication itself or the treatment. That cost alone can buy all that equipment that is needed and put it here locally so that they go to our own hospitals rather than abroad.
Yes. But that's why, this is when I start saying all this has been written about. Frantz Fanon talks about white masks. Black skin, white masks. What does it mean? It means, yes, we have a black skin, but in your head here, we don't even need to go to Frantz Fanon. We just need to go decolonizing your mind again. Why is it important? Why is it important? Because then we then get to build Africa. We then get to build our own. So then we can find pride within ourselves. So when somebody comes and tells us we already have our own, we say, no, thank you. We have. Look at the Asians. They did the same thing. We don't export sickness.
No. That's a new one.
They don't export sickness. They take care of their own, and even they still hold on to their cultural sicknesses. I mean, when you talk about the COVID time, it's also a very good example. Didn't it get to a point where nobody wanted to touch any pharmaceutical drugs? We all went herbal. They were all manners of herbs were created and were beneficial. They were the ones, they were the ones which reduce inflammation, but there were all this, and there are these weeds which we have been putting Roundup everywhere so that we can produce maize. But again, why should we do so? Why should we then kill ourselves, our true selves, our own identities, ourselves, so that we can fit into whom? So that who can we be? Invisible? And if we are invisible for whom? Invisible for ourselves or invisible for a particular who? Which gaze? So many people talk about the white gaze. Yes, but there's also the brown one. There's also the one from Asia. There's also the Latino gaze. They all look at us. In which way? And that's why I say, when I began, when you talked about, I said, the ones who have melanin, hair, like the one from God, which is absorbing, starly like the universe, we as a people, wherever we go, they don't ask where you are from. They don't look at economy, how rich you are. No, the first thing that negotiates any encounter is your skin. Then from there is when they know whether you are capable or not. So when others have, that's when your materiality, your wealth then comes in. But there are cases, you have heard of cases where people who are super rich have gone to shops and they are not served. Why? The color of the skin. And this is then leads me back into who are we? So if we stood on ourselves, why do we have this discussion? Why are we so busy trying to prove to others that we are humans, yet we are the original?
And what's wrong with this color?
There's nothing. It's perfect.
So why do they look at it the way they look at it? As you said, the first thing they look is this.
Well, now, me, I have this theory that goes on that we have been having a debate and we have been talking to people who have long gone died. But whatever they said is we are living through it. So I would say that the Valley Dot debate of 1555 by De Casa and Supraveda, that was the debate. It was held in Valley Dot. It was about, they were discussing, it was the Pope, but I can't remember which Pope. And what was happening is there was a Papa Bull which had been given. A Papa Bull is a declaration by the Pope that whoever the conquerors, the ones who went to the newfound lands, when they went there, they had the authority, so long as they had the piece of paper, to claim that that was the land of the church or the Pope. And for that, they had the authority then to convert you into Christianity or to get rid of you or to make you a slave. So at that time, they had gone to the Latin Americas and the indigenous people were there. But they were so violent in their exerting this Papa Bull from the Pope that one of the priests there complained, not actually priest, a bishop, complained and sent a letter to the Pope saying this is now beyond barbaric. This is beyond. These people are not slaves. They're not animals. They have souls because, again, for them it was souls. Who has a soul and who doesn't have a soul? Who has a soul that can be redeemed, that can be saved, that can become a Christian? And who doesn't have a soul that can be saved? Because remember, at that time also there was a contest between Islam and Christianity. So at that point, now I've kind of condensed that whole history. It's a lot. But at that point is when Supraveda and De Casa, who were also people of the church, were appointed to have this debate.
Yeah.
And De Casa, in his argument, Supraveda was talking about, well, these people have souls. They don't have souls. They can be. But with him, De Casa, who had never ever interacted with an African, had never seen one or anything. But he used the definitions by Aristotle of who was a natural slave. And he then proposed in 1555, is it? 55 to 57, he then proposed that the ideal people for cheap labor were the Africans because they were natural slaves. They had no soul that could be redeemed for Christianity or could be converted. That he said it. And that is how that debate won. So straight away, what happened is the indigenous people of Latin America had souls. So they were considered human. But the African, who was not on that table, was then considered what? A natural slave. using the definition of Aristotle. But Aristotle's definition of a natural slave was not based on color or region. He was now talking about who should be a citizen within Greece. But again, but with Descartes' mouth, he said, the African is a natural slave. And immediately at that, 1605, the 1602 and 1605, the two multinational corporations were incorporated to do what? To move the seas, to trade with what? Spices, ornaments, precious metals, chattel, the human being. From where? From Africa. That was the beginning of slave trade. That is 1555. All these people who have come and fought, Frederick Douglass, the abolitionists, you name them, all of them, Martin Luther, who else? Jomo Kenyatta, Dedan Kimathi, Patrick Lumumba, who else? All of them, you name them, have been having this conversation, trying to tell a group of people that we as Africans are not natural slaves. We are human beings. The damage was done in 1555. We are in 2025.
That's
and
almost
we are still having that debate. We are
almost
still
500
trying
years.
to convince people that we are what? We are human beings, that we bleed, that our heart is the same as their heart. And if you look at the current situation and the current world situation, there's a new rising of who? Of white supremacy. Where does it come from? Where does it stem from? All the way back.
500 years ago, almost.
Exactly. And yet we're still talking about it. And because of that debate, then everything within the globe has been structured in such a way that even W.E. Du Bois calls it the veil, the invisible veil of race, of color. So even in the international system, when we talk about United Nations, if we look at it, who has veto power? How many seats does Africa have? Not even a permanent seat. Is now they're trying to negotiate for a permanent seat. 54 states. And remember, African states of the world, they're about 60 or 70. In Africa and outside, where people like us are there governing, including Jamaica, Trinidad, all those, Haiti, again, all these things we are there, but we have still not yet. Why? It's because of that debate.
Yes.
We were not classified.
Yes, Albina is a very, very, very interesting topic, very, very deep topic. And we've just scratched on the surface, as they say. But we are running out of time. We only have like 5 minutes, and we are going to come back in the next episode and maybe even give more details about the effects of slave trade, how it even went like this declaration you're talking about. I don't remember what to call it, which said about 500 years ago that we are natural slaves.
Validated.
Yes, it's gone into our subconscious that we even feel inferior when we meet a white person.
But
and you remember there was an incident in Coast the other day when this guy from Dutch was spitting into a policeman, and it's like for him it wasn't a big deal. And the cop just looked subdued. Maybe we'll discuss about that also next week as we continue. But we are running out of time. We have just like 3 minutes. Maybe you can give a closing remark, and then we can say bye.
Well, again, my closing remark is that please remember, I am because we are.
Mm.
And we are because I am. We are all connected. We are all one.
All connected.
If we carry that in our hearts as Africans, we will go a very long way, because we are the ones gifted. We are the ones blessed. We are the richest on this earth. Where we stand is where our wealth is. And what we carry even in our bodies and even in our heads and our souls is very precious.
Great. And which means we only need to open our eyes and wake up. And opening our eyes, we need to listen to Ubuntu Rising. We need to read and explore and research. And thank you very much, Albina, for this time you've been here. And listeners, will join us again in the next episode where we talk deep. Sometimes it's difficult to stick on a particular topic because this thing is so wide. Sometimes we find ourselves digressing, but we are giving it to you as it comes raw. So thank you very much. And until next time, have a nice,
Bye.
yes.